Welcome back to Crime Cafe, and today we're going to be covering an unsolved case, and it's the case of Lauren Agee. This case is a little different than the ones that I have been covering because it's actually not technically unsolved. It was ruled an accident, and it is widely believed that it was a homicide. So I'm going to be giving you all the details of this case. I think it's fascinating and just poorly managed. And I will also be linking a petition that I found. It was started a couple months ago, and I figured I would link it below. I'm not sure if it's still going on, to get her case opened up and looked at again, because I think it should be. So I'm going to leave that petition for people to sign in the description box if you want to go ahead and sign that after you gather all the details yourself and make your own opinion of the case of Lauren Agee. So with all that being said, I have my coffee. Go ahead and get yours, relax, and let's dive in. Lauren Agee was just 21 years old. She was born on August 19th, 1993, and she was from Biloxi, Mississippi. She lived with her mom and her stepdad, Sherry and Michael, and her three siblings, Allison, Jordan, and Joshua, in Tennessee. Lauren was described as a very lively person. She was always bubbly, always into gymnastics and sports and things like that. She was very active, and her mom just described her as a person full of sugar with just a little bit of spice. And she just loved to have fun and was always dancing. It was like one of her passions. She actually starred in a music video when she was a little bit older. So she loved to dance. She even got a scholarship to go to college for dance, but she actually turned that down so she can go and major in criminal justice. Lauren had an extremely active social life. She had tons of friends. She knew a lot of people, and she also had a boyfriend. In July of 2015, Hannah Palmer, one of Lauren's friends, asked her if she wanted to go to Wake Fest with her. It's a summer festival that people would go to, and they would do wakeboarding and do like sporty things during the day and while drinking. And of course they would end the night drinking and partying and hanging out. Lauren told her mom about wanting to go and the invite that she got, and Sherry was not too thrilled about it. She didn't think that Lauren should go. She had a bad feeling immediately, and she always felt that Hannah Palmer wasn't truly Lauren's friend. She felt like Hannah was easy to pick her up and drop her whenever it suited Hannah. She would, if she had no one to hang out with, she would call Lauren, because Lauren was down for anything. If Hannah got a boyfriend or was too busy with other friends, she would no longer bother with Lauren. And her mom, like all our moms, see right through those things when we're younger, and she just didn't feel like it was the right thing for Lauren to go. But she's 21 years old, and she wasn't going to tell her no, and she just expressed her feelings and her worries and told her to just be extremely careful. She gave her an extra hug before she left and squeezed her really tightly, and that was the last time that she ever got to hold her daughter alive. It was Friday, July 24th, 2015. Hannah and Lauren left to go to Wake Fest, and as they were driving there, they were constantly uploading pictures and statuses on social medias and just expressing their excitement for the festival that weekend, and everything seemed fine. Lauren was having a really good time. It was obvious that she was enjoying herself, and when they got to Wake Fest, they met up with Hannah's boyfriend, Aaron Lilly, and he had a friend with him named Chris Stout, who Lauren had never met before. They got there and they immediately met up with the boys and went and started to day drink and have a good time and party and mingle and socialize with other people, watch the festivities going on and the sporting events, and they were just having a good time. People also enjoyed cliff diving. It was in an area, of course, with a lake on it that you can do water sports, but it had high cliffs that people like to jump off of, and it wasn't regulated. It wasn't watched by any security or looked over for, rocks or any bungee cords that we're going to hold on to. Nothing like that. It was just people going up on top of a cliff and jumping off and trying to avoid the rocks that they saw below. So Lauren and Hannah participated in this, and everyone jumped off the rocks fine. And when it was Lauren's turn, she did see rocks on the bottom and she made sure to avoid them. But if you ever jumped off of, I've jumped off rocks, and not from as high as she did at all. But you know that there's rocks underneath that water, and it could be different levels of water. You don't know how shallow it is, and it might be extremely deep in this area, and you move a foot over and it could be really shallow. So you don't technically know what you're diving into. So there's rocks underneath, and she did hit her head off of one when she hit the water, and her friends said that she did have what seemed to be like concussion symptoms. She was shaken up for a couple minutes and kind of like woozy, and she shook it off though. It was after about a half hour, she was back to normal, hanging out, everything was fine. So they continued to hang out, and I mean, after you go through something scary like that, I'm sure it was terrifying to jump off a cliff in the first place that you've never jumped off before. But then to actually do the thing that you're scared of, to hit your head and have that, is nerve-wracking. But she continued to hang out, and they drank, they socialized, they went to different bar areas at the Wake Fest, and she was having a good time. Lauren, Hannah, Aaron, and Chris all drank until about 2 o'clock in the morning. And this is when they were talking about, shutting down for the night and going to bed. So originally, Hannah told Lauren that they were going to stay in a cabin. Wake Fest offers people to purchase a couple nights in a cabin if you want to, and that's what Lauren thought was going to happen. It wasn't until 2 o'clock in the morning, where they're all drunk already, that Hannah informs Lauren that they're not going to be staying in a cabin. They're going to be staying across the lake at a place where people do camp outside in a tent. You have to take a canoe across the lake to get there and climb this steep cliff. And like I said, it's not like there's no real trails or anything like that. It's not like a campground where there's trails dug into the area and walkways for you to get up there. No, it's all like makeshift trails. And so there was a rope that people had put there that you can hold on to when you're drunk and going to camp in this area. But that's all like the safety that was around for them. And Lauren was not happy with this at all. I mean, who would be? You think that you're going to be staying in a cabin, and now you find out at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're drunk. Everyone else is drunk, and you're going to have to canoe across this lake and climb this cliff. And get this part, this is insane too, that only some people would camp in tents on the land at the top of the cliff. Now, it was a cliff, and you can look over and see the wakeboarding festivities going on, but people would camp on the ground in tents, and then people would also, there was hammocks like connected everywhere, kind of off the cliff. So this is a 90-foot cliff, and Hannah tells Lauren that the sleeping arrangements are going to be Hannah and Aaron in the tent, and Lauren and Chris in the hammock, hanging 90 feet above the water, rocks and water. And I mean, who would be happy with that? So she kind of started to panic. She was really mad about it, and she ran around to see if she could find anyone that she knew at Wake Fest and see if she could stay with them in one of their cabins, because she didn't want to do this. She didn't want to canoe across the lake, walk up this 90-foot cliff, and sleep hanging over it with a man that she didn't even know. So as Lauren's going around trying to find anyone that she knows, she ran into a friend from high school named Cassie Franks. Cassie was a regular at Wakefest. She was going there a couple years now, so she kind of knew the ropes, and Lauren was telling her what was happening, that she didn't want to, she needed to climb this cliff to go to sleep suspended in a hammock over 90 feet, and she didn't want to do it. Cassie was staying in a cabin, and she was telling her that a couple years back, she had to do the same thing. She went there, didn't get a cabin, and she decided that she was just gonna camp out, and she felt so unbelievably unsafe that she vowed to herself that she would never do that again. She would always splurge and do whatever it took to get a cabin instead of camping out. But when Lauren asked if she could stay there with her in her cabin, she said that unfortunately it was full and she couldn't stay there with them that night. Lauren ended up having no luck finding anyone to stay with, so she had to go with Hannah, Aaron, and Chris, and she had to canoe across the river drunk and make her way up the mountain holding onto a rope in the dark. And like I said, there's no lights. They can't, like, they have their phones, but there's no lights in the cliff. So she had to do all that in the dark, and they did get to where they were camping out, and it was said that Hannah and Aaron went in the tent and went to bed. Lauren and Chris went in the hammock and they went to bed. Now, a lot of people are skeptical about Lauren and Chris staying in a hammock together because Lauren did have a boyfriend back home and she wasn't interested in Chris in any way at all. She didn't even know him before then, and it was said like he kind of annoyed her. She didn't care for him in that way. She wasn't attracted to him in that way. So people thought that it was weird that they would be sharing a hammock together, but I want to say that when you're young and like at a festival and things like that, and you're drunk and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, it doesn't mean staying with someone in a sleeping arrangement that you have no other choice. Doesn't mean that you are attracted to that person or you have to be attracted to that person to sleep next to them. So it is completely possible that she agreed to stay in the hammock with Chris just because she tried to stay somewhere else. It didn't work. And what else was she going to do? So it doesn't mean that she was happy about it or that she was, attracted to him. It was just somewhere that she had to lay her head for the night and get through it. So the 4 of them went to bed, and when they woke up in the morning, they noticed that Lauren wasn't there. She wasn't in the hammock. Chris didn't feel her get up at all. So it was the 3 of them, and they did see that Lauren's things were still at the campsite, and they just figured that maybe she went for a walk, maybe she got up early and didn't bother to wake them, and she just went to go meet up with other people that she knew at the festival. And so they didn't make a big fuss about it, and they just got themselves ready, continued on their day. So they went down to the festival. They were drinking, hanging out, socializing, doing the, seeing all the water events and everything like that. And they were seeing people that knew Lauren, like Cassie. They asked her if she saw her anywhere, and people said no, they didn't see Lauren at all that day, and it started to seem kind of strange. And around 4:30 in the afternoon, 2 fishermen were out on the lake, and they noticed what looked like pink shorts in the water. And as they got closer, they could see that it was a dead body, and it was Lauren's body. Without getting any closer, they could tell that she was already gone, and they didn't want to tamper with anything. So they got in their boat and they went and told police. Now, they found her in this cove type area. So it was away from the festivities and away from really where anyone was going. So they went and told the police, and the police got in the boat and they went to go show the police officer where they found her body. This is when they saw a man in a canoe rowing that way. They told him that he couldn't go that way. He needed to turn around and stop what he was doing immediately. And the man said, "But that could be my friend over there." First of all, as far as the police knew, the only people that saw the dead body and found the dead body were the two fishermen. And it's not like they went and told anybody. They immediately went to the police. So unless someone was around that area and went back to Wakefest and was saying that they saw a body in the cove, then no one knew about this body laying there. So they found out that the man who was canoeing towards that way was Aaron Lilly, Hannah's boyfriend. Lauren's body was found away from any festivity. She was away from the cliff where she was sleeping at. So if she, for example, fell out of the hammock and was able to hit the water, the current wasn't even going in the direction of the cove. So she wouldn't have been taken towards that way. Many people do believe that she was murdered somewhere else and then she was taken and dropped off in the cove area. I'm going to show pictures of bruises on Lauren's body that I found online. There are other pictures of her where you can actually see her in the water in the cove, and the fishermen that had found her, but I'm not going to put that in the video because I don't think it's appropriate to put that in a video. But I will show her some bruises that she had because they are questionable. Lauren was taken for an autopsy and there were marks on the top of her back and shoulders that seemed like bloody underneath the skin, like a fresh bruise. And she had the same type of bruise on her chest. Now it was on her breast and it was in the shape of a bite mark, but it was as if someone reached around her this way, or I mean, yeah, they could even be sideways or something, but it was sideways. It wasn't like a bite mark up and down. So the police saw that and they let them know that a rape kit should be ran on her because, you know, there's bruises and a bite mark. So it would be best to always run a rape kit on victims. But no rape kit was ever done. They decided not to do one because when they were doing the autopsy, they saw that she had a tampon in. Okay. Lauren didn't have her period during that time. So it's very well she could have had a tampon in because it's a water sporting area and she just wanted to be safe. Maybe she was going to get her period soon and she just wanted to be safe. That's, you know, understandable, but just because you have a tampon in doesn't mean that you can't be raped. I don't understand that, and it makes me angry. It really does make me angry because if there was any evidence at all, they just let it go because they assumed nothing could happen with a tampon in, and it makes no sense. That's poorly done. Makes me angry. Some people have a theory that the rapist actually put a tampon in after he was done to deter police from running a rape kit, but I don't think someone would think of that. I have been I took classes, I majored in criminal justice. I've never heard of anything like that before, that if you see a tampon, you don't run a rape kit. That it makes no sense whatsoever because things can still happen when you have a tampon in your body. So obviously it makes me really frustrated. Also, the clothes that Lauren had on at the time weren't hers. Somebody put those clothes on her. She wasn't wearing those clothes prior, like the night before when they all went to bed. She wasn't wearing them. She didn't own them. People think that somebody put those clothes on her. Her bra was really tangled in the strap area. And if you're a woman, you know how annoying that is, that you don't leave your bra tangled. I mean, unless you don't care, but it's rare. Usually you want it neater because it's annoying. And her bra clasps on the back, only one was buckled. So they did a blood test on Lauren and her blood alcohol level came back twice the legal limit. Of course it did. She was at a festival and she was drinking all day and all night, and twice the limit, honestly, that's not even like It's not like she was blacked out drunk. The limit is to drive. It's not on what you can handle and how you feel when you're at that level of intoxication. After Lauren's body was autopsied and ran through pathology, it was determined that none of the marks and bruises on her body were from foul play. They believe that she may have fell down the cliff on her own, and she got all of the marks on her on the way down. She also had some signs of her throat being kind of crushed, not crushed in a way that would kill her, but they said it fell in line with if she were to fall with her neck on a rock, it could crush it a little bit, but it could also be crushed by a person too. Lauren had scrapes and scratches on her elbows and her knees, which once again fall in line with her falling down the cliff, but it could fall in line with other scenarios as well. If she's fighting off an attacker, anything like that, you're gonna get scrapes and bruises when you're out in the wooded area. She could have ran and fell. There are so many different things that could have happened to just so quickly claim that she just fell off the cliff, and that was it. She had a broken nose and some broken fingers, and she had 2 huge bruises on her thighs, which once again could fall in line with her being attacked, somebody maybe kneeling on her thighs to have her stay still while an assault is happening, but that was all said to be from a fall off the cliff. Lauren's cause of death was officially ruled accidental by drowning, which obviously a lot of people don't believe that, which is why I'm covering this case. They believe that it was a homicide. She didn't even have fluid in her lungs, so how it was signed off as accidental drowning, she would have to inhale fluid for her to drown, but she didn't have any fluid in her lungs, so that makes no sense at all. Another thing that is really strange, it wasn't declared like what happened, and people want to know what happened. She had a mark on her stomach, and it really does look like a mark that you would get if you were placed like on the front of a canoe. So she would have been off the canoe and leaning over with the top of her body on the front of the canoe. I mean, the mark is so strong. So something happened there. She got that somehow. That's not from falling. So somebody had her, what looks to me, honestly, looks like they had her over the canoe, and it was either to get her to the cove or maybe like when an assault was happening. Of course, the police pulled in Hannah, Aaron, and Chris for questioning because they were the last people with her, and they just wanted to know. It wasn't as suspects or anything like that. Like I said, they assumed that she fell pretty much from the very beginning, but they wanted to know what her day was like, how, what happened before bed, if they heard her leave or anything like that. They were very quick to come up with a couple theories of their own. Hannah had told the police that she saw Lauren with an older man earlier that day in a boat and hanging out with him, and said, maybe that guy had something to do with it. Aaron thought that Lauren was going to speak to her ex-boyfriend because he was at the festival. And then Hannah gave another theory that maybe she was going to the bathroom because there was a certain area for the girls to go to the bathroom, and they would just kind of hang onto a tree and lean over, and like maybe she fell off in that area and then got drugged. The current took her to the cove. Lauren's family hired a PI, a private investigator, to test these scenarios, and she had a test dummy who was the same height, weight, and structure build as Lauren, and she took the dummy to the hammock area where Lauren was sleeping to see if maybe she fell when she was sleeping, and threw this test dummy off the cliff 50 times, and not once did the dummy land in the water for it to be dragged by the current, which was going the opposite way, to the cove. She also took the test dummy and threw it off of the area where the girls were going to the bathroom, and there is a ledge like a little further under where they were going to the bathroom, and every single time the test dummy landed on that ledge. So Lauren would have been hurt had she fallen there, but she wouldn't have fell to her death, and they would have found her on that ledge. When the questioning was over for the 3 friends of Lauren's, they went about their weekend like nothing had happened. They went and enjoyed Wakefest like Lauren didn't even exist to them. They had fun, they drank, they hung out with people, they did activities, sports, you name it, they did it. They even got home and put on social media that it was the best weekend ever, and with no mention of what happened to their friend. A police officer did mention that when he went to go pick up Chris and Aaron for questioning, he had to take a boat because they were across the lake from Wakefest. He had to take a boat to go get them, and he had them in the back of the boat, and he heard them talking. He heard everything that they were saying, and Aaron was telling Chris to just be quiet and he'll take care of it. He'll say everything, don't say anything. And Chris was panicking, and he said, I gotta get off this boat. I gotta take his gun in order to get off this boat. He didn't do anything. He didn't move forward or do anything like that. So the police officer didn't need to do anything. But he heard all of this taking place. A few months after Lauren's death, like I said, the family hired their own personal investigator, and they wanted her to investigate in the friends of the friends that Lauren was with during that weekend. She interviewed Cassie, and it was found out that Cassie was actually Aaron's ex-girlfriend. And she mentioned that he did have a history of being abusive and aggressive with women, including herself. She said that he got extremely violent with her, and that is actually the reason that they broke up. She showed the PI pictures of herself when she was in the relationship with Aaron and when he had physically abused her, and she had bruises on her, and she also had bite marks. Another person who was questioned was Lauren's friend, who wasn't at Wakefest, but Lauren was texting her during that time, and her name was Jade. That night, Lauren kept texting Jade how she just really wanted to go home. She wasn't having any fun anymore. She wanted Jade to come pick her up. It was already really late at night. Jade didn't know where Wakefest was or how to get there. And Lauren just kept saying to everyone around her that she was just going to drive home. Hannah actually told police that Lauren was saying that she wanted to go home, that she wasn't having a good time, and that she was just going to drive herself home. So she did say that the 3 of them did take her keys and they weren't going to let her leave because she was drinking all night. Then a lot of people at the Wakefest, the people that talked to Lauren that night, did say that Lauren was not having as much fun as you would think that she would. She was saying that her group of people that she was with were being mean to her, and she didn't want to be there anymore. She just wanted to go home, and she wanted to find a ride home, but she couldn't find one. A man named Chris Brown was interviewed also. He wasn't at Wakefest, and he wasn't part of the group, but he was on a family vacation with his wife and kids. He was staying on the lake, so it was next to Wakefest, and he was actually out on the deck, and it was around midnight, and he saw someone swimming towards him. He said, I saw a young man climb up on the dock. The young man appeared extremely distraught and worn out. He was spitting up water for several minutes, and the young man told me that he almost drowned when he swam back from the camping ledge to the dock. He said that he thought the man was Aaron Lilly because he remembers the build of the man and it matches Aaron, and also that he had American flag swim shorts on, and that's what Aaron was wearing all that day. A lot of people don't necessarily believe this statement because he was saying it was midnight and people saw Lauren alive at 2 a.m. when they were making their hike up to their sleeping area. So the time didn't match up. The three friends got back home and they acted like nothing ever happened. They never mentioned anything and they literally said that it was the best weekend ever. And when Lauren's funeral happened, none of them showed up. A couple months after Lauren's death, Hannah and Aaron moved to Florida. And it was around this same time that some nasty things were being said online about Lauren and the events surrounding her death. And it was just all of these comments and things being said about her. And Lauren's family had their private investigator get the IP address from these posts, and the IP address actually came back to the same street in Florida that Hannah and Aaron live on. Now, deep diving into this case, I did find some things that I want to mention. Now, everywhere it says that there was the four of them. There was Hannah, Lauren, Aaron, Chris. Now, I've seen quite a few times that there was actually a fifth person in this group, and his name was Brixner Gamble, and he was 28 years old. He had a history of violence. There is absolutely no knowledge of him in any statement. The other three people never brought him up, and it is believed that they actually covered for him because he left that morning. They noticed Lauren went missing. So I don't know how true that is. I'm not sure, but that's what I've read multiple times. And that he not only left Wakefest that morning, but he left the state and he hired a lawyer. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how true that is, but that seems pretty suspicious to me. Sherry, Lauren's mother, filed a $10 million lawsuit against Hannah, Aaron, and Chris for wrongful death, and this was in December of 2016, so like a year and a half after Lauren's death, because they didn't call to report her missing. They went all that day and didn't even care to say, like, wonder where she is or anything like that. I also found that the first officer that was on the scene, that drove the boat to go see this body that was found, did not agree with the pathology report stating that it was an accidental drowning. He didn't agree with it. He is quoted saying, "There is no way that was an accident. I will go to the grave believing that girl was killed. Her body was moved and they are hiding the truth." With the lawsuit in December of 2016, that was ruled that there was not enough evidence in a wrongful death for her to proceed with a hearing. And another thing I want to mention is that I found Aaron Lilly online, and he is now paralyzed. An accident damaged his spine in 2017. He was actually T-boned and he's paralyzed. I saw pictures of him surfing with his wheelchair, and he is living with Hannah. They are married and they are living their life. But yeah, I wanted to mention that he is now paralyzed. With all of the information with the case, I want to know what you think. I want to know if you believe that she really did fall from the cliff and was over there without telling anyone. She was in that area by herself and she fell and that was it. Or if you believe that there is something suspicious going on and there is more to this. If you do believe that there is more to this and you think that the case should be reopened, definitely go and sign the petition that I have in the description box below, because that could help make that happen. But that is it for today. Like I said, let me know how you feel about this case. If you have any suggestions for any cases, leave them in the comments below or email them to me. I love all the suggestions. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell. It'll notify you every single time I upload a video, and I hope you have a good day. Thank you so much for giving me your time. Bye.